Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, today's video is a request off a subscriber. They've asked me to do a brief video on basically how to strip and re-grease or re-lubricate a differential. So that's precisely what we're going to do. Now, as far as I'm concerned, most or the vast majority of RC differentials come in little self-contained units like this. Now they might vary in size and colour and material that they're made out of, but essentially they all do a similar sort of job, and essentially they all contain a very similar type of setup. Now normally the wheel differentials sit at the front and the rear of the RC. If we've got if it's four-wheel drive, it might be two-wheel drive, so you might just get a rear one, and some fancy RCs they might have a centre diff. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to have to assume that there's one at the front and the rear. Now, normally they live under a cover that forms part of the chassis, like on this Zinglihong chassis here, or possibly you get a situation like this little WL Toys one, where you get like a diff inside a diff housing, and that diff housing then bolts to the chassis in some way, shape, or form. But generally, the differentials look a bit like this. Like I say, they vary in size, colour and material, but essentially they're all pretty much the same. Now then, we're going to assume that we've removed our diffs from the RC and we've got the units here. Now normally there's several screws, as you can probably tell, that hold the two halves of the differential together. I mean, you get 4, you get 3, they're all pretty much the same, to be honest. So what we're going to do, we're going to strip one, re-grease it, put it back together, so you can see basically how to do it. So the first job is to split the differential. So we need to remove the 4 screws that hold the two halves together. Might fast forward this bit for you. Okay, then we've sufficiently removed the screws far enough so we can split the two halves. So there you go. And immediately you can see the little bevel gears inside, and these are the actual differential gears that allow each side of the differential to turn at a different speed, hence it being a differential. So anyway, let's flick these little gears out. And normally you get 4, you can get 3, and normally they're held on either by 2 little shafts or they're on like a little plastic carriage, which is, I think, might be the case in this FTX diff. There we go. So there you can see we've got our little bevel gears there, and we've got the 2 larger bevel gears at either end of the differential, and these are attached to basically each cup either side. So normally, I suppose when you would, I mean, this one's brand new, so it's full of grease. Now normally you'd split these, and obviously the grease or the lubricant side would be dirty, and you just replace it. Okay, so we've split our diff and we've cleaned it out. What lubrication do we put back in? Now there are 2 main schools of thought on this one. There's the use of a proprietary grease or a very viscous diff oil. Now they both have advantages and disadvantages. And the advantage of grease is that it doesn't tend to leak out. But the disadvantage is that once the gears have cut a path through the grease, it doesn't tend to flow back in to lubricate the gears anymore. But if you pack it tightly, you probably can get round this. It probably isn't too much of an issue. Now, the advantage to using a very viscous diff oil is that it's oil and it flows when you're not using the buggy. It flows back in to lubricate the gears. But the main disadvantage is that it does tend to leak out, and this silicone oil goes absolutely everywhere. So the effect of having that very viscous diff oil inside the diffs is that extra drag on the gears just lessens the aggressive nature of the openness of the diff. I mean, if you want to see an example of which, I did a video on the Fay FY004 where I put some of this 300,000 weight CST silicone oil inside the diffs to help maintain traction. And so if you want to see the effect of putting a very viscous diff oil in some diffs, go and watch that video. Anyway, for this demonstration, I'm not going to use oil, I'm just going to bung some grease back in. So we'll pretend we've cleaned them all out. All we're going to do is fill the diff cavity with some grease. This is just some WPL stuff. Bob the sort of assembly back in. Now we're going to have a bit squirt out here and there. That's not an issue. Want to keep as much of it in there as we possibly can. Some of it might squirt out after we put the two halves together. There's normally some locating holes somewhere on them as well. So have a bit of a fiddle around. Yeah, there we go. And all that remains for us to do is to just screw the screws back in. So once again, I'll do this and fast forward the video. So the two halves are back together, all the screws are back in, and that is basically all that's entailed in re-lubing and stripping a differential unit. And that's as easy as it gets. The only difficult decision you'll have to make is basically what lubricant you want to stick back inside, and that will come down to personal preference. Anyway, I hope you found this video of some use and interest. Please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Thanks for watching, guys. Thank you.